Welcome everyone to this fifth talk of our summer session. Deep into the heart of practice realization. Your own heart. Today I'd like to turn to a koan whose main characters, Seppo and Ganto, have already come up in the course of this retreat, supporting us as they supported one another. They were both disciples of Toksan, a very strict master, very stern, coming out of his own experience. Ganto, the younger of these two Dharma brothers, was something of a Dharma genius. He awakened early, just in great freedom. Whereas Seppo, 6 years older, struggled. After some years with Toksan, at least part of those years as the head cook, the Tenzo, Seppo had yet to awaken. So there's this one case with Ganto and Seppo and Toksan. It's in the Mumonkana, I think it's case 13, where we just catch a glimpse of Toksan, a stern master. But here, he's an old master, not as sharp mentally, but like a stone, whose edges have been just worn smooth by the tide. No friction remaining, no person remaining. In place of his ferocity, which, in his heyday, seems to have included sometimes a little extra roughness. But now, it's just compassion. Seppo, in one scene in that case, shows some pride. He's the head cook. Many of you know this case. Toksan comes out wandering with his bowls too early. The drum hasn't sounded, the bell hasn't rung, and he's just disoriented. And Seppo, sees that and, "Oh, master, what are you doing?" Kind of chastises him. And Toksan just turns around and goes back. So Seppo actually is showing some pride in later on as that unfolds a little bit of derision for his aging master. Possibly signs of Seppo's own insecurity. A monk without a clear experience, he's a monk. He might have been beset by a sense of inadequacy. It's touching. Defending the very thing you long to have drop away. So well into their time with Toksan, Ganto and Seppo set out on a journey. This is a familiar story, but I think it comes up again for a good reason, helpful reason. So they're on this pilgrimage, this journey, and they get caught in a snowstorm and need to, hole up for some days in a room in an inn in a little village on Tortoise Mountain, sometimes translated Turtle Mountain. There they are, and day after day, Seppo is just sitting, round the clock, sitting, while Ganto is just lying around, sleeping, just totally at ease, nothing going on. And finally, one day, Seppo, this is in the record, calls Ganto to account. He says, monks on pilgrimage have profound knowledge as their companion. This companion must accompany us at all times. Can you hear how fixed he is on this? Actually, I like the image of the companion. Some students working with Mu, it's like this constant companion. But here, we have this burden to carry, this profound knowledge. But here, all you're doing is sleeping. And Ganto calls back to Seppo, hey man, if you keep going on like this, sitting there like some clay figure, you're going to spook the villagers. But then there's a shift. Seppo points to his chest and says, I'm not at ease. I'm not at ease here. And Ganto immediately encourages him. Take it easy. You're going to become a great teacher. I keep saying that. But Seppo says, I'm truly anxious. I don't want to cheat myself, or one translation says deceive myself. So Ganto says, okay, tell me about your experience. I'll help check it for you. So Seppo starts recounting. Early on, I heard a master expounding on emptiness and form, and I had some glimpse. Ganto says, for 30 years, don't speak of this matter again. He's in his head. He's got this idea. Seppo continues. Then there was this time when I saw Tozan's awakening poem, and I was just struck. It's an amazing poem, just so to share it. Tozan himself, long struggling, finally leaves his beloved teacher and takes off, and he's just walking off on pilgrimage, having no idea where he's going or what will happen. And he crosses a bridge and sees his reflection. And he writes this poem. Avoid seeking elsewhere, for that's far from the self. Good instruction to Seppo, but avoid seeking elsewhere, for that's far from the self. Now I travel alone. Everywhere I meet it. Now it's exactly me. Now I'm not it. Oh, can you hear Dogen in that? Yeah. To carry the self forward and confirm the myriad things is delusion. But when the myriad things come forth to confirm you, that's it. Now it's exactly me. I'm not it. I'm God. Ganto hears this from Seppo and says, if that's so, you'll never save yourself. You know, if you're relying on somebody else's experience, on somebody else's words, forget it. It just gets conceptual. Take care listening. Seppo goes on. Later, I asked Toksan, Master Toksan, can a student understand the essence of the ancient teachings? Fair enough. Toksan hit me and asked, what did you say? And Seppo says, at that moment, it was like the bottom falling out of a bucket of water. Ganto lets out a shout. And he says, haven't you heard it said that what comes in through the gate isn't the family jewels? In the future, if you want to expound a great teaching, it must flow forth, up within you, flow forth from your own breast to cover heaven and earth. In that moment, unguarded moment, Seppo hears that. He's probably heard it before, but he hears it then, and he awakens. He deeply awakens. Seppo bows and exclaims, today, Tortoise Mountain has attained the way. Not just Seppo, the whole mountain. There's a tradition even that his name, Chinese Zhu Feng, is maybe also part of the name of this mountain. But that doesn't even matter. It's his experience, the whole waking up. It reminds me suddenly of Eka, this disciple of Bodhidharma, that famously comes, stands in the snow all night. He's so sure that, it's a matter of life and death for him. He's so sure Bodhidharma is his teacher. He stands there all night till the snow's, like up to his waist. And in the morning, there's still no response. And so he's the one who finally cuts off his arm, it said, throws it into the cave. And Bodhidharma turns to him and says, what do you want? And Eka says, Master, have mercy on all beings and teach me. Today, Tortoise Mountain has attained the way. As this sitting deepens, somehow becomes more and more earnest, that word that shows up so often in the Mumonkan. Mumon really, that's the way he identified these monks coming in all earnestness. As that happens in us, we find we really cannot sit for ourselves alone. Maybe in the beginning we do, it's fine. But these shifts happen. And it's just no longer for yourself alone. And somehow then we begin to see, I can't awaken. I don't awaken apart from the whole. Such a world. And that's the depth of the support. We can imagine the great joy of Seppo and Ganto sharing this world. We share in it too. We're implicated in it. This one awakening. Already so. And yet, here we are. So now let's turn to the koan. This case of Seppo and Ganto, who are now masters, and they're collaborating to help two monks awaken. This is from the Blue Cliff record, or Hekiganroku Case 51, and the same case shows up in the Book of Equanimity, or Shoyoroku, as Case 50. So the actual text of the case is the same. It's lovely to compare because they have these introductions and verses that are different, but we won't be going there today. Here's the case. When Seppo was living as a hermit, two monks came to pay their respects. When he saw them coming, Seppo thrust open the gate of the hermitage, jumped out, and said, "What is this?" The monks also said, "What is this?" Seppo hung his head and retired into his hermitage. Later, the monks came to Ganto. Ganto asked them, "Where have you come from?" The monks said, "From Reinan." Ganto said, "Did you ever visit Seppo?" The monks said, "Yes, we visited him." Ganto said, "What did he have to say?" The monks related what had happened. Ganto said, "What did he say?" The monks said, "Not a word. He hung his head and went back into the hermitage." Ganto said, "Ah, how I regret that in those days I did not tell him the last word. If I had told it to him, no one under heaven could do anything against him." One more C. At the end of the summer practice period, the monks came back to this conversation and asked him about its meaning. Ganto said, "Why didn't you ask me about it sooner?" The monk said, "We could not dare to ask you about it." Then Ganto says, "Seppo was born on the same stem as I, but he will not die on the same stem. If you want to know the last word, it is just this." So let's look into this. Seppo and Ganto, 9th century Tang Dynasty masters. Ganto really saw his brother's potential. There's a sense of capacity. We all have it, but there was some special potential. And so he's trying to help him awaken. And finally, Ganto's effort comes to fruition. So Seppo, this sibling who struggled, ends up as abbot of a monastery with 1,500 monks. And Unman, great Unman, was one of his Dharma heirs, one of those 1,500. Ganto, on the other hand, didn't have many successors. He died at the age of 39. We'll look into that in a bit. Ganto liked this last word, and he used it often. This case just revolves around it. It's like Master Goutet. I mean, if you've been around much, you've heard about Goutet, who used this one finger zen. You know, the saying is, whenever Master Goutet was asked anything, he simply held up a finger. How many times? Never the same twice. And he gets to the end of his life, Goutet, and says, I have used this one finger zen all my life and have never exhausted it. The last word for Goutet. So what is the last word? The scene begins with Seppo in his hermit's hut, already a master. Students would visit, ask for teaching, and in this case, Seppo sees these two monks coming, and before they knock or bow or even take off their sandals, he throws open the gate, jumps out. What is this? What is this? Quite a greeting. Right off the mark, Seppo is checking, teaching, conveying. And the two monks met with this, just respond in kind. Sort of in kind. What is this? Actually, not a bad response. Had they seen, what is this? Stands alone, swallows everything. Nothing but what is this? So they don't quite see, and instead they offer this imitation. As Seppo's disappointed, back into his hermitage. This thoroughgoing, energetic teaching, just on that occasion, unmet. What is this? The koan in itself, many have taken it up. I hear about this a lot. Take it up with curiosity, with wonder, quietly sitting, turning the light around. What is this? It's not a discursive question. Actually, the fact itself, even just what or this, this. If you've been earnestly practicing in this way, it came up yesterday in the Q&A. Who am I? What is this? Maybe you might have met Seppo's wildly generous greeting in a different way, without the sort of quick artifice. It does slow us down. It's very understandable, the pressure of coming up with a Zen word can put us on the spot. It did those monks, speak at once. A lot of the koans say that. Or there's that scene of, the mighty Nansen, and these monks arguing about a cat, and he grabs this cat, this innocent creature, and holds it up and pulls the little knife out that he would have had in his robe, and he's, say a word, you monks, or I'll slay the cat. And their mouths are stopped up. Speak at once. How can you say a word without any stink of Zen? How would you meet Seppo at the gate, having traveled so far to see him? No performance, nothing extra. Urgent question aside, how might you greet him? How respond in a way that naturally flows up from your breast, from your own breast? What might that be? So sometime later, the monks traveled to Ganto for the summer practice period, this 3-month traditional ango. And he meets them, not like Seppo, just more traditionally, where have you come from? Can often be a checking question. Here, this exchange takes a turn. The monks say, from Reinan. And immediately there's a spark. That's Seppo's locale. Ganto wants to know, did you ever visit Seppo? And maybe, he's already heard this tale. We don't know. Yes, we visited him. And the monks tell the whole story. Ganto listens, responds. You could say, planting a seed or a thorn in the mud. Ah, how I regret that in those days I didn't tell him the last word. Had I told that to him, no one could do anything against him. This phrase, the last word, it's a word, maybe a few words, that you say right before you die. last word, your dying word. But this is a koan with a koan function. It's not about when and then, before or after. Ganto is pointing beyond ordinary, divided ways of measure, however we contrive them, add them up. He's pointing to right here. The last word. This word. Your every word. Born, dying. Just one word, one sound. Whatever you say is the last word. We're like, what? I'm about to die? No, it consumes everything. You can't say anything more. Each word stands alone. Each word, the whole. Not just, oh, this whole world, the whole. And I like this. This is, we were up with Rion last week, and he's always adapting his language, but this time he liked to use this phrase, exhausting the whole universe. I like that. I mean, my own experience is somehow the language that's come up is swallowing everything. That flame on the altar, that candle, that flower, the sound, swallows everything. He's saying it exhausts the whole universe. Nothing to add. It's not possible. This is the reality Ganto is seeing, saying, asking. Each word, last word. And not only just a word, desk, stick, floor, tatami, mat, clouds. Also, bombs in Ukraine. News we may not have heard this week. Each bit of it, so whole. This last word, you can't add anything, and you can't even approach it. It's just so thoroughly complete. In a way, it can't accept anything else. Such a world, each thing perfectly cut out. There is nothing that exists except the last word. Maybe that's Ganto's sense of it. He's trying to awaken Seppo. Show me a word. One word that exposes the whole of existence. Wherever they are. If it had been in that little inn, he might have said, the futon on the floor, the window, the pillar, the snow outside, the cold, this blanket. Each bit of it exposing, exhausting. So where's the barrier? Whatever that barrier may seem, it's dissolved, fallen. Again, as Ryon Roshi says, I would not get away with this, but he can say, because it is whole. No barrier from the start. How can you break through a barrier that's not there? That's part of the challenge. If we thoroughly realize this last word, we see no barrier from the start. It's a way in. This is Ganto's great confidence. And he offers it again and again, like Gute, without the slightest trace of repetition. The last word, the sharpest sword, what is it? What is it for you right now? At the end of the summer practice period, 3 months in, the monks, having carried their doubt all summer long, come back to Ganto. They come to Ganto and they ask him about the last word. What does it mean? Did Seppo really not know? And Ganto says, why didn't you ask me sooner? We didn't dare ask you about it. We didn't have the courage. We didn't understand. And so Ganto just sums it up. Seppo was born on the same stem as I, but he will not die on the same stem. If you want to know the last word, it is just this. Kind of ironic, since just this is sort of the heart of Tozan's poem, that, in that moment of hearing it, when it crystallizes into some concept, Ganto tells Seppo, forget it. Seppo was born on the same stem as I, but he's not dying on that stem, on that same stem. He does not die on the same stem. This is about now. Born, dying. The lines, beguiling line, is usually explained. Ganto and Seppo both, they come from Toksan. They grew up together on this same Dharma stem, born. But they each teach in their own way. They're not dying on the same stem. It's a poetic interpretation, and that did happen. But this line again is a koan, a living koan, and closely related to Ganto's last word. Really expressing his teaching. We are born on the same stem. We are born at the same time. All of us. What a marvel. Just one birth, one born, functioning. And it's always now. Born right here. Check it out. Go for a walk. Every step. Born right here. But we're not dying at the same place. In what way? I'm sitting here talking. You're sitting in the zendo, in the cloud, listening. Some are in the zendo. Some are online. At the same time, sitting here, talking, listening, there is nothing going on. Really nothing. And out of that, born at the same time and simultaneously dying at the same time. Moment to moment. Exactly where you are. One whole born. One whole dying. One cough, dying. One breath, born. Other way around. One breath, dying. One cough, born. One word, one gesture, even one thought. Everything coming up. And everything exhausted. I hear that phrase and it really rings true. Just this stick. Here, but gone. Gone, but here. Right here. Born. Die. Ganto died when he was 39, quite young for a Zen master. Sometime after the scene in this case, he became the master of a monastery that was named for him, Ganto Wantu. It happened to be a turbulent time in China, and the word reached this monastery, reached Ganto, that bandits were roaming the country. Just roaming, robbing, destroying. So Ganto hears about this, and he sends his monks out into the surrounding woods, into the hills, for safety. He alone stays, sitting zazen in the Dharma hole. So when the bandits arrive, look all around this monastery, they find nothing to steal. The head bandit is enraged. He pulls out his sword. Ganto's sitting. And he just takes off his head. at the moment just before the blade hits the skin. Ganto lets out this massive shout. This shout so loud it's heard 10 miles around. His monks all out there hear it. They're like, oh, what has happened to Ganto? What was this shout? Cry of distress? Actually, it's Ganto's last message to them. His final teaching. Did they get it? So, generations later, Master Hakuin reads or learns somehow about this scene. And he assigns it to himself, takes it up as a serious koan. What was that shout? And for Hakuin, he really struggled. Was this great Master Ganto afraid to die? When the koan finally broke open for Hakuin, he exclaimed, "Ganto lives." The last word, the word you say or see or experience at the moment of your death, for Ganto it was a shout. Not a shout from the past that became a turning word. It's going on right now. Each one of you is that shout. What does this say to us about life and death? What might it turn in us that we have the courage to turn to the moment at hand? It's odd that it takes courage. We're made for this, to turn to the moment at hand as the only moment, the whole moment, the empty moment, just this. Just a little epilogue. After Seppo became abbot at his monastery, a monk asked him, "When the master was at Tokusan's place, what was it you attained that allowed you to stop looking further?" Seppo said, "I went with empty hands and returned with empty hands." Not just empty, gone. And yet, we can put them together and say thank you.